everyone, and thanks for joining us once again in transforming the world through reflections. Today, we are going to have an amazing conversation all about the shift that's happening in the business world, yet in so many other ways in our lives. And joining me today is a dear, dear friend, Sonia Smith-Kang,
Thank you.
creator of Mixed Up Clothing and much more than Mixed Up Clothing. So I just want to welcome you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I can't wait to hear what's been happening. I watch, the different activities, the different projects you're involved with, and I think to myself, Sonia is busy, busy, but joyfully busy. That's the
right.
thing.
That's right.
That's the thing. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. What an honor. I'm so excited. I follow you as well online, see all the wonderful work you do. So I'm excited to be here. Life is just been something. I the last couple of years have really been a time for reflection for me and really wanting to stick with the intentions that I have tried to do in my life, which is really be about representation, diversity,
Yes.
inclusion,
Yes.
equity, social justice. So it really, this time just really amplified all of that and really made it seem like the time was now, even more so. And so the work that I've been doing with Mixed Up Clothing, which is a children's line that, I designed through a multicultural lens to tell the story of, our stories,
Yes.
our Black and brown stories. And I use fashion as my vehicle to tell those stories.
Again, the arts telling our stories.
That's right.
Again, the arts
That's
telling our
right.
stories. And like you said, definitely the times we're living in and the last couple of years have really amplified the need to give attention and really invest energy
That's right.
in how we explore or don't our issues of identity,
Right.
our narratives, our cultural narratives. And you've been doing this long, long before the pandemic.
That's right.
Yeah.
I've been biracial all my life. So yeah, I've been talking about it for a while.
Uh-huh.
My father's African American. My mom is Mexican. I was born in Puerto Rico. And then my family moved to the island of Oahu, Hawaii. And so I feel like that I am this poster child of, multiculturalism
Yes.
and have always been talking about it. I actually went to school to be a registered nurse, and I was the multicultural nurse in the unit there. And I really enjoyed finding that intersection between culture and health. And so, I, like I said, kind of just infiltrated every aspect of who I was. And then I started having children. I met my husband, who's Korean. So we, diversified even
Some
more.
more.
And we're having these little mixies, and I would sew clothes for them because, I didn't see in the fashion space, in retail, the intentionality that I was trying to bring to my children. I was trying to raise them in a home that reflected an accurate reflection of who we were.
Yes.
So that meant artwork that came into the house. It meant books that came into the house. They were going to have Black and brown characters that looked like them, that told their stories. So one of the things that I, found that was missing was, the clothes that they wore. We had traditional outfits. Growing up, there was ballet folklorico.
Yes.
So we had that. And then for the Korean culture, my children had a hanbok, which is this beautiful garment that they wore on their 100th day of life, on their tol or birthdays.
Yes.
So I would look and I would see my husband and all of the pride when the kids wore this. And so I was like, what if there was something that I can do to instill this sense of pride in an everyday kind of, way. So I started sourcing fabric from around the world. And I would turn them into little bloomers, little dresses, little shorts, whatever it was.
Yes.
And then people would be like, what is that fabric? And I would say, oh, that's Ankara, and, it's from here. Or this is, dashiki print, or this is, whatever it was.
Yes.
And then they'd start talking about their culture. And I was like, look at that.
Yes.
There is something there that I want to explore. I want to talk about it. I want to hear your culture. I want to hear, what it means, what the fabric, the creator, who is behind this.
Yes.
And so I cashed out my 401k, started, taking little Etsy orders, just popping up at farmers markets. And my husband was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I think I'm starting a business. And there it went.
There it went. There it went. As I'm listening to you, Sonia, I'm thinking about how powerful it is when we let ourselves take risks because our heart is telling us something.
You're right. You're right. I would wake up thinking, how was I going to make some kind of difference? And I tell the story to my kids about this 12-year-old girl who was here, who came from Hawaii, and, brown skin, curly hair, in a sea of Farrah Fawcett's here in the valley.
Right.
And I would take the school bus down Roscoe Boulevard to school, and I would daydream. And I would be like, and I was so aware of being different that I was just waiting for someone who looked like me. And I just knew I wanted to see that.
Yeah.
And so every day I wake up and go to sleep thinking the same thing. What can I do to make a change, to be a change agent, to, whatever it is? You talk about art and activism, artivism, those kind of things. What can I do with the skill set that I have?
Yes. Yes. And the dream still lives. It keeps moving you. It keeps showing you new ways of sending that message. When you mentioned what if, I thought, if we listen to our what ifs more often, what would we do? I'm thinking that, like you said earlier, these 2 years have really made it so that certain topics are amplified. And in that process, my hope is that we're all listening to our what ifs more deeply. It is urgent that we all amplify our gifts. Another thing that came to me as I'm listening to you is something that I recall being said by Toni Morrison. I don't remember it verbatim, but something to the effect that if you don't see yourself reflected out in the world and you have the power to create, just go ahead and create it yourself. Tell your own story. Don't wait for it to be told by someone who doesn't know it as intimately as you do. And you've done that through your designs. Amazing.
This is why I'm here today. I needed to hear that, because when you're talking about your what ifs, and then we talk about what drives you, what wakes you, what you think about when you wake up, think about when you go to sleep. Sometimes the what if is, what if I fail? What if I lose money? What if and so when you have the drive and you have that inside of you, that fire in your belly type of thing, that's one of the things for me that helps when I do have those what ifs that might be off to the side that say, well, what if it goes well? What
Right.
if this is, so I have to challenge myself. Sometimes the what ifs can be that negative voice from, the years of, my life experience,
Yes.
right? So I have to, dig deep and really look at that driving force that helps kind of push those things aside and, what keeps you going. Because in the end, for me, it's at that intersection of business.
Yes.
So it's got to sell.
Yes.
I mean, something has to,
to move forward.
Yes. With that part that is like, this is my why. And so thank you for bringing that up. It's really powerful, the what if, and trying to, silence the part of the what if that can keep you, not moving forward.
Yeah. And in these conversations that I've been having, not only through this podcast, but otherwise at work and with myself and with other people in my life, the idea that we accumulate learned fears. And to your point about the what if that wants to pull us back, thankfully, there are other what ifs that can keep us moving forward. And so fear may not go away. It may not. But if it stays and wants to go for the walk with us, thankfully, fear is not the only force available. Enthusiasm. You were talking about staying connected to your why. Whew.
This
That
is
right
why
there.
you are so good. The fear can also be, it's challenging your thought.
Mm-hmm.
If I fear not making money or being successful, the part of the fear that's even greater is not trying to make a change, of keeping things, where we don't see ourselves, where we don't, that fear is greater than my, all the other stuff. And fear can be a motivator to continue to work and to, it is really just changing the mindset and really kind of being friends with fear.
Yes. Talking to your fear, letting your enthusiasm, your excitement, that dream that you were talking about that just lives in there and moves you, let that talk to the fear, because the fear doesn't have as much information as our enthusiasm,
Yes, there's a lot of talking that happens in this head, and so
I'm with you. I mean, I have found myself taking risks in areas that I had never even considered, such as this. But the why kept me moving, and I thought to myself, well, the teachers will show up. The teachers will show up so that this can unfold, because I feel that it needs to. Just as you said, well, let me cash out this 401k, and nursing was good. Let me nurse in another way.
Where's my pen and paper? I need, that is it. And I do. Ooh, I'm able to bring the nursing part of me. So, my mom and my family were just like, she's gonna what? But nursing is just, it's stability.
It's stable.
Yes.
What are you doing? Where are you going? What are you doing?
Yes.
What are you doing?
And entrepreneurship is,
Yes.
it was it was something that my mom's parents, my grandparents, they were entrepreneurs, and they opened up a restaurant and here in the valley, and so I did get to see some of that. But she sent me off to school to be a nurse. She was like, she's gonna do what for what, and not have a not have a some kind of safe space to land. And but I tell her I mean, I got 4 kids, so I'm nursing all the time, but I am able to take, what I do with nursing into what I do in business and in the fashion world. It still requires triaging. Every day is like, what am I going to do? Prioritizing. Right. It's the same, technique. But I will say, I call what I'm doing, the fashion of healing.
Oh,
and
I love that.
For me, it is really healing that 12-year-old who was riding on that school bus, who didn't see herself, who was waiting for someone. Well, that someone was me. I was waiting for me.
For you. Oh, wow. And in that process, you're also healing those who don't see themselves reflected in the items available out there in the market. So representation is everything. You talk about this a lot everywhere I see you, with culturas, and let's talk about culturas. Let's talk about culturas so that our audience can be aware.
Yeah, well, Culturas is a place for celebrating these stories, and it was trying to find these curated stories and kind of put them all under one space.
Yes.
You're right. I mean, the minute I start talking and I start telling like my story, I could see my kids in the background. They start, because I'm a broken record at this point. And so they are there finishing my, all my little, my mission statement, my little,
They know.
my line, because I'm talking about it all the time. But get this, they're sitting in class listening to, to things. And it was like multicultural day at school. And my daughter was told, bring a dish from your culture. And she was like, I have, African American, Latin, and Korean. And the teacher was like, well, just pick one. And she was like, oh
no.
I'm going to bring something from all my culture and, this whole thing, because she has been taught that you bring your full self wherever you go.
Wherever you go.
And so they are listening and they are watching, me work, and they're taking that. And so to have the goal of raising the next, group of change makers.
Yes.
I take that very seriously.
I can feel that.
Yeah, for kids to see themselves and, in all across the board is a huge deal.
It is. And what a legacy. And the thing is, when you hear your child speak those words, it's already being poured into your child. And for some, it's healing in that there was that wound of not being seen, not feeling seen. But your children are learning from the beginning, just in the home environment. They're really embracing, the different things that say who they are.
Yeah.
And it's so affirming. So I'm thinking about children who, because of what they're being exposed to through your work, not just your children, they too are able to identify in terms of all these different cultures represented in themselves, so the wound doesn't happen.
That's right.
They start without the wound. It's like you're investing in the next generation, so they start already appreciating who they are. That's powerful.
Love that.
I'm so thankful that you're doing this. I mean, you said even with fabrics, being questioned about fabrics, right there, teachable moments.
Right. All of it is, you know, it's just these stories that are waiting to be told. And what I'm finding that I'm excited about is, you know, large brands and you know, corporations
Let's go there,
that
please.
we are now saying, you know, we are here, and we have to, you know, make these kind of decisions that are affecting our community, our Black and brown communities.
Yes.
And so it's important that we hold them accountable to tell our stories. You talk about, you know, the wonderful words of Toni Morrison. And I also feel like there's this, if you are telling our stories without us, then that, you know, that is a problem.
Yes.
We need to be the authors of our stories, you know, those makers, those creatives of our story.
Yes.
We will partner with you, but we need to be at the table.
Yes.
And so I'm really enjoying seeing the partnerships that are happening. I'm excited to be part of those discussions. I'm excited, you know, to see them, you know, partner with communities of color and indigenous communities and saying, let's collaborate.
Yes.
And, you know, bring, you know, highlight what is happening. Because we all should know what is happening.
Yes.
To, you know, it's not just for us, and I say us in the Black and brown community, but we should all be knowing about each other's culture and you know, understanding our history. It's just we share this world with just such amazing stories and cultures. It's important to know about it.
It is. It is. There is such richness in letting ourselves know not only about our stories, but other stories. You know, let these stories mingle. Let them mingle. And let's, you know, allow that mingling to move us all forward stronger.
Love it.
Right? I mean, this division is some foolishness.
That's right.
It's some foolishness. We stand so much to gain, all of us.
Yeah.
All of us.
Right.
You know, and here we are talking about fashion, but it's more than that. It's so much more than that.
It is. And I always, you know, I kind of say it is more than, for me, it is definitely more than just the fashion. You know, it's mixed up clothing is mission driven. It's purpose driven. And it's just such a wonderful time. And I just feel, you know, very blessed and thankful. There was something that you mentioned that I just wanted to share that I think, you know, in talking about how important it is to kind of tell these stories, I find that, you know, I don't know, I just find that there's the power in understanding, but it's also expanding your worldview.
Yes.
You know, I had a dear friend of mine who said she's mixed and she's African American and Japanese, and somebody said to her, "Well, you don't look, you know, whatever it was, right?" And the comeback was, "You just haven't seen enough folks, you know, so don't put that on me. You need to expand your worldview. And I think when I step back and I think about that, the more folks that we have access to and the more folks we learn about, you start to say, I get to challenge what it means to be on the Latina, diaspora, that there are Afro-Latinas and,
Here I am.
right. Do you see? And, the African diaspora, the Latina diaspora, the whole, we come in different shapes, sizes, hair textures, tones. So expanding and talking to more folks, we get to say, okay, I get to know, I think that's wonderful.
I agree. And, one thing that stays with me from conversations with my mom, who's a teacher, she always said, traveling is the great eye-opener. So true. I was blessed to be able to travel as a child, and I really appreciate the value of it. And I think there's so many ways of traveling, and as you're talking about what power there is in letting ourselves be exposed to variety, with an open mind, that's a way of traveling. That's a way of traveling and having more access to, the Latina community looks many ways. The African diaspora looks many ways.
Yes.
And so it's cultivating an openness. And I feel that through the work you do, the art and the activism that you are involved with, that is a way of inviting people to, expose yourself, please. Expose yourself to variety. Shed the fear.
Yes.
And just check it out.
You got it.
Check it out. Ask about it.
You got it. That's it.
And another thing that really, it really strikes me as inspiring is you gave yourself the gift of shifting, to leave a profession and create another experience for yourself. I'm curious about what you were feeling before you made the shift. What was happening in your nursing life, that version of your nursing life? Did it play a role in giving yourself permission to move into this space?
Yeah, this is, it's all relatively new in finding myself in this chapter. I think it just comes from that fire in my belly of wanting to, what did I want as a child, or what did I need as a child that I, may not have had the language at the time, but that I was trying to figure out, how to do that. And so I was telling myself, how do I make that happen? How do I make that shift? And not necessarily having the playbook growing up and seeing that it was possible.
Yes.
So I do feel a lot of it came from inside that just said, you got to do this. There's just, we're going to figure it out. And, there's been a lot of tears. There's been a lot of, ups and downs. And I had to keep telling myself that, I'm giving it my all. And I'm just going to keep trying.
Yes.
And I'm going to keep, there's a lot of no's in fashion and in other industries. And I was used to stress. Like I could start an IV while, eating a sandwich, or, do CPR with my eyes closed, this whole
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
But starting a business, like, that's a whole another level of stress.
Yes.
And so I just asked a lot of questions, and I found folks like you and our group that is able to bounce those kind of questions off of, and that can understand,
Yes.
that we may not have seen all of it growing up, or had those kind of experiences, but we can together try and figure out, even if it's in different, industries.
Yes.
It's just saying, having someone to kind of bounce those ideas off of. And I think that's why I'm so honored to be amongst this group of folks in our community that just kind of say, I may use art or education or health and wellness or fashion, whatever it is, as my medium.
Yes.
But, here's how we all come together. Come be on my show. Come, talk on, do an opening on at my book reading, or whatever it is.
Yes.
Because together, these are the stories and that need to be told, and in different, the ways we express that. And so it's really kind of tapping into, our networks, and kind of getting those questions and support that I didn't always have.
Yes. Yes. As you watched during the pandemic, especially the earlier part of it, when so much devastation was happening in the hospitals. People just at the end of their rope. The nurses, the physicians. I mean, that was an incredibly stressful time. And I'm wondering what thoughts came up for you thinking about your former colleagues.
Yeah.
Especially those that were just expressing the level of stress like they were drowning.
Yeah.
I can't stop thinking about this physician that committed suicide, burnt out in the midst of that extremely difficult time.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, my husband is frontline. He's a physician, and he. So I saw it. I got to see it firsthand, and my heart went out to all the folks who were struggling and working through it and going through it. And you talk about, I think the theme is going to be intersectionality so I was able to meld my skill set as an RN with my fashion
Yes.
And design. And I had been sewing since 7th grade. And so I was able to, I had worn masks in the hospital, of course, as an RN. And so I was able to meld those two things, and started making fabric face masks, one of the first businesses here in Los Angeles to make the quick pivot. I knew I had fabric. I just went for it. And knowing that PPEs were at a shortage, and hearing the call out to help support, what could I do again as an individual? It's again just asking that same question. What can I do?
What can I do? What if?
What
and
if?
you consistently hear the call to action. How can my gifts be of service?
That's right.
And so you connected to, your former colleagues in that way.
That's right.
I thought about this also as something to consult about with you, because during that time when so many of the health professionals were burning out, for many it was an eye-opener to the what ifs. What if I engage in a different profession, such as you did through another call. You know, what if I did that? What would it take for me to do that? Because I am so exhausted, and or I'm discovering that I've come to the end of the road with this profession and I want to create something else for myself, all prompted by the exhaustion in the pandemic. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think definitely again, the call is really important, and the time period, what the pandemic, the racial reckoning that we also had. Again, the call to action is asking yourself, what is it that, and fill in the blank. What is it that either moves me? What is it that sustains me? What is it? And ask those what if questions, right? And so during this time, it's really, I guess, maybe people are waking up and saying, you know what? Maybe I don't need to overstress my kids with all these activities. Maybe I don't need to have the cleanest house or, whatever it is. Maybe my time would be better spent here or doing this, taking a leap of faith and starting that business that I've always wanted to start, because our time here is precious.
Yes.
And so waiting for tomorrow, as we've seen during this pandemic, during this, our racial reckoning, is our time here is limited and can change. And we can't wait.
Right.
And so I think that for me has definitely been a motivator. The same way that you have a business plan, my family has a family plan. And we talked about, what is it as a family that we prioritize?
Yes.
And it's our togetherness. It's, sometimes there's pancakes for dinner. You know what I mean? Like there is just, this is what's important to us. This is our priority. And so everything else kind of we've learned during this time this is where our focus is going to be. Yeah. And I think folks are coming to that, even in taking that and applying it to different parts of themselves, whether it's as a parent, it's as a friend, it's as a tia or a Nina, or as, or as a business owner, whatever it is. This is the time.
This is the time. And this line of thinking can be so supportive even to the people who did not decide to leave a profession as exhausted as they were, to the point of burnout even, but to pause long enough to reevaluate priorities and what they were willing to do in order to be focused on those priorities, remaining in the profession that they were carrying out at the time. And so that's true for your former colleagues and really all of us, if we just give ourselves the chance to pause and click refresh, recalibrate. Am I investing my energy or am I wasting it, just spending it off? So it's really, really interesting to hear you talk about the family plan. The family plan. I mean, your children are getting these powerful life skills, to move into adulthood with a practice of, let me reflect on this for a moment. Let me reorganize. That's awesome.
Thank you. Awesome. And it was also, these, we talk a lot about the last couple of years, but it's also, been one of their big teachers, right? And how having to school's going to be on Zoom to, whatever it was. We're going to have to switch things up.
Yes.
And so, that resiliency and, but it's also, I brought them in to what the work, they come with me. We're like this little,
Troop.
troop. Yes. A little troop that just rolls together. And so my older kids were sewing. They were putting labels on our masks. They
that.
were, the other part of giving back to the masks weren't only for the healthcare providers. For me, it's really trying to serve an underserved community, whether it's the unhoused, the underinsured. So it was making sure that I found folks and organizations and nonprofits that had the community there so that I can donate some of the masks to as well. Yes. So my kids have been part of that. I want them to, be thankful for what they have, and also to understand that this is a community effort. It's a group effort. Yes. Like, we need to look out for and speak up for those who may not have a voice. And so the life lesson continues.
Yes. Oh, hi, Sonia. So many gems. So many gems. I am so thankful that we're inviting all our listeners to reflect on these things that can hopefully continue to shift the way we all move in the world. This pandemic, as intensely painful as it's been, has brought so many gifts. If we're willing to pause and catch perspective, you've shared so many. And I thank you for everything that you are continuing to do, continuing to find ways to give of yourself. And your children are learning how to focus on that. What is what gives me a sense of purpose? And the gratitude, all this delicious stuff. Wow. Well, thank you again for being here. I would love for you to share with our audience all the platforms where they can find Sonia and her delicious gifts so that we may bring this to a close and look forward to another time.
Yeah, I think it's just follow us on social media. Our handle is Mixed Up Clothing. I am Sonia Smith-Kang. You can find me there. Shoot me an email. My lines are open.
Yes.
And I cannot thank you enough for giving me the honor of sitting next to you, and for being my friend, and for being in these trenches together. I thank you.
Thank you. It is my honor to know that you're in my life and to watch you grow and invite people to grow.
Likewise.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. And as always, may we continue transforming the world through reflections.